formula years back on the market asset and earnings basis. And thereafter, one also is look at the resultant shareholding. Essentially, mergers have there will be a lot of rulings otherwise, but mergers do not trigger open offers. But this is also a factor that one needs to keep in mind, because as valuers to a transaction, you are putting out a value for the board to take a decision to issue shares and recommend to the shareholders. So it has to be a combination of more than one method, and the complexity of the transaction actually derives the approach. Now, this was an acquisition in all probabilities, but it was structured in a tax efficient manner, so it became a relative exercise. In the next case study, we are talking of a plain Jane acquisition, which is there is a US acquirer who wants to buy out a listed Indian company who has a subsidiary in Germany. Now, it's going to be a straight acquisition. It's going to be straight acquisition of shares, which will trigger an open offer, which will put out a price on a fair market value basis. And the question then comes is that when I'm acquiring 100%, how do I evaluate? So when we were approached to do this transaction, what we started off with is that market price is there, it's a well traded stock, you can't ignore it. And thereafter one needs to see what is the synergy premium that the outgoing shareholder will get a portion of. One will have to, you cannot, though SEBI formula prescribes that 2 weeks and 26 weeks price and things like that, but essentially deals don't happen at the market price. Typical example though, in a United Spirits case, the open offer price, which even after a 40% or 60% premium to the 6 months average price, it didn't go through with the shareholders because the value perceived was far higher. So when you're doing this acquisition kind of a scenario, the methodology is almost, there is no change, but one needs to keep into mind the key deal drivers. So you had a US company who wanted to enter India, who knew that for it to start operations, given the environment in India plus the regulatory requirements of his plant and things like that, he would take at least 2 to 3 years. He would take more time to reach capacity utilization. There was a company which had a US FDA plant, which being in India had the low cost advantage. So there was a lot of plus from the buyer that he is willing to give a premium. And where it comes from is that he used the market price as a minimum benchmark, and thereafter did his own cash flows, set of cash flows, to see what is the kind of value he can generate, and from that value how much was he willing to pay as a premium to the outgoing shareholder. So the methodologies were the standard ones that we used in there. Next slide. The market price, it was listed, so it could not have been ignored, but there had to be a control premium, a premium that the selling shareholder was required to get because he created a facility. There was enough profits in the business, enough synergies for the buyer to come in and start the business on his own. And there was a German subsidiary, of course, which was getting valued in the market price. Some of the questions that come is that when you are valuing an Indian company, what happens to its foreign operations? Today we are valuing everything on a market, knows everything on a consolidated basis. Indian accounts are far more transparent now. You have standalone and consolidated results. Investors are far more understanding, and so market takes into account a consolidated valuation. So the German subsidiary may not have been valued separately, though we did value it separately because there are certain deal dynamics around it. So it's a part of the market price. Comparable company methods does play into a major part here, but the biggest part that will be in an acquisition kind of a scenario will be the comparable transaction and a discounted free cash flow. In a comparable transaction, though this is a pharma thing, just look at it e-commerce. And e-commerce, essentially, the discounted cash flow will give a methodology, will give a value, but essentially there will be no cross-check except in terms of a comparable transaction. Flipkart went at 6 times GMV recently. So there is a sense on the value that is ascribed or the price that a transaction has been done at. And so one has to look at from an acquisition perspective. So eventually what happened was there was a combination of values that were done, including scenario and sensitivity analysis. In an acquisition, we had another case in that same pharma thing. There were certain molecules which they had not even reached a very basic stage. So essentially how we looked at it then is We said let's look at the bread and butter business that is as it is, and do a value of that separate molecule, looking at its probability of success, what is its market rate, when will reach the market, when we go off patent, how much will I get on, if I don't produce it further, I sell it of this. So we did a scenario where we captured the value of the existing business and the new business, and then depending on the buyer's comfort, he was willing to put a price in the new business. So that is, so again whether it be an acquisition or otherwise, combination of methods will have to be used, and depending on the tax structuring of this.
One more to a specific question about to what detail can we go and look into it. So many times it's not only about pharma. Let's say a mining asset. You and I cannot upfront, or not even the promoters can tell us what is inside and how much is it. So we ask them to get a feasibility study and technical study done, and those reports will rely on. So I am not a mining expert, but I can ask the client, and obviously client, before he's putting in money, he would get that done first. So we ask them to get that technical studies done, and then we rely on the report and the projection basis that.
Same case would be in the industry where like cigarettes, maybe it's regulated every year, the excise will be going up. You cannot forecast something.
No, that you will not do.
That of course you will not.
Business is stable. The business is stable. Statutory tax rate changing cannot be.
That can hamper my business. So that has to be taken.
That could be passed through also. No? You can say service tax changing from 12 to 14. Some governments pass through. Only on certain matters which are technical in nature, which we cannot do it. Even obviously the company will ask the company to do a research about it. Apart from we banking on our own internal experts. I think any questions? Yes, please.
My company is a C-rated company, it's a junk. My company is CCC or B minus, and the transactions in my comparative companies are very similar. But whereas they are probably AA or B minus, or like becoming the top notch. But everything else is similar. So how would I consider that as comparative? The transactions are very similar.
So you still see the first and primary thing is the business is saying, we're competing, saying is for whatever reason we are not able to do it, maybe due to capital constraints, working capital constraints, or whatever reason. Unless until you say there is a issue with the product itself of yours. If there is a working capital constraint because of which your current scenario of the business operations is taking a toll, that's a different matter. But if you have a product, if the business is intact, the quality of the product is intact, then might as well you can borrow the multiple from the transaction, discounted, considering that you are not in sync with the, or you are not in profits or a lower profit compared to the transactions. You don't have, and you will take some time to reach up to that stage. But in case if you have a product which has failed, though you are competing in the same business and they have suddenly come out with superior products and out of substitution, then it becomes little difficult. Still you can borrow, but the discountings need to be higher.
So what kind of adjustments will I make if I have a junk rating, so like B minus and below, and if I have to go for a comparative who is A list, so what kind of adjustments would I make in that case? Like I'm kind of doing a loss.
Yeah, so discounts, you'll have to see how much discount, one for the product, one for working capital, timing for when you will be able to reach to that stage, assuming you will be able to mitigate and come back to that level. The degree of discounts will have to be kept in mind, keeping this in mind.
Thank you very much, Pinkesh and Tejas, for your brilliant presentation. May I now request Tejas to propose a vote of thanks.
Good morning to all of you. Mr. Pinkesh and Tejas has dealt with various case studies. It's in a very simple and lucid manner, and they have taken us through how the practically valuation is done. It has been explained also that it is not a mathematical thing what we have to follow, but various qualitative aspects need also to be considered, considering the various premises and the assumptions and the using the judicious discretions to come to a conclusion, various discounting factors. So with this, I propose a very hearty vote of thanks to both of them, and I request all of you to carry out.
you, I think, will have